Jury selection is underway for the trial of the suspected Pittsburgh synagogue mass shooter. He's accused of shooting 11 people in an anti-Semitic attack. The trial comes as hate crimes against Jewish Americans are on the rise. The Anti-Defamation League reports anti-Semitic assaults jumped 26% last year, and acts of vandalism surged 51%. Now synagogues across the country are taking action to protect their congregants. I want to bring in ABC's Brad Mieke, host of the Start Here podcast, for more on this. Brad, these aren't just your standard security measures for a house of worship. So walk me through this.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, lots of people are concerned about safety, right? But when you look at the country right now, Jews in this country make up a little more than 2% of the population. The FBI said that in 2021, they accounted for more than half of the targets of religious-based bias incidents. So it's overwhelmingly disproportionate attacks on American Jews right now. And so what you're seeing is a response to that, right? So, you've got more security measures that are visible at synagogues across the country. So lots of synagogues have traditionally, had security, but we're talking about active police presences outside Shabbat services or something like that. I grew up Catholic, and when I grew up, going to the local church, the door was open for much of the day. Like, you could wander in. It was almost weird. There was nobody in there. You could go and you could pray. You could look around, whatever. That is no longer the case in synagogues. That used to be the case, no longer. I mean, our producer, Vika Aronson, actually went to a local synagogue in Montgomery County, large Jewish population, one of the biggest in the state, in Maryland. And she noticed that there are fingerprint scanners at this point to get in the door. Doors are locked throughout the day. Somebody needs to invite you in if you're not a congregant of that place. And then you're also seeing more and more trainings for what to do in the case of an emergency.
And I know your producer actually attended these training sessions that are being offered to congregants. What was that like?
Yeah, and these trainings, by the way, have surged in the wake specifically of the attack on the Tree of Life Synagogue and in Colleyville, Texas, the shooting a few years ago. And while there were casualties in each of these, congregants said that the reason there were not more was specifically because of trainings like these. So there are these groups that come in and basically offer advice on, this is not like self-defense. It's not what to do if a scary man comes towards you. This is what to do if a guy with a semi-automatic rifle is in the neighborhood of a synagogue making his way through the door, which, again, we've seen many, many times. So
is it like how to find cover, when to tackle the gunman, questions like that? It's
the classic run, hide, and fight methodology.
Right.
And at this point, it's actually stuff you've probably heard in your office trainings or in your school trainings for kids, which has sadly become more and more common. What's different here is, those are usually mandatory. You don't volunteer to show up to those. Here, this was a house of worship on a Wednesday night, and people are showing up by the dozens because they are very concerned this could happen in their local synagogue. That's the difference right now between Jewish synagogues and so many other houses of worship across the country.
I don't have a ton of time left. Before I let you go, I do want to ask you about this new survey, because I know it's graduation season, but apparently encouraging grads to follow their dreams is not the best advice. So walk me through this, and what do we do?
Yeah, this blew me away. So this weekend, every weekend from now through June, you're going to hear the classic graduation speech to high school and college students, right? And the speech will always be the same. It's always, follow your dreams, kids. That's what you should do. We talked to a researcher from the University of Washington who said the more they looked at this, the worse advice that is. And the reason is because when you tell kids, to do one thing, they sort of pick traditional jobs. The more you tell them to follow their dreams, the more they begin to split along gender lines. As in, when they started telling young girls, what would you do if you just had to follow your dreams? More girls would say, oh, I'd want to be a teacher. I'd want to be a nurse. Classic, things that have been sort of ingrained in us as classically feminine professions. And the more boys would be like, I want to be a scientist. I want to be like the next Steve Jobs or something. Which was not the case when they were asking them to follow other, advice. So the thing here that the researchers are concerned about is the more we tell them to follow their dreams, the more we're actually encouraging this gender divide that we've really worked for decades to eliminate.
But would they be happier in those roles?
Well, this is the thing, is what the researcher said, is it shows you actually how malleable our passions are. When you speak to young people, and by the way, we're constantly asking 5-year-olds, what do you want to be when you grow up?
I know a lot of 40-year-olds who don't know the answer to that question.
Well,
I'm not sure I know the answer to that question.
But I feel like everyone was always asking me, and I'd be like, I want to be a firefighter, because it's what I see, right? The thing that this researcher was sort of describing was a lot of young women in this country in particular haven't had a lot of STEM education. They often get less STEM education than boys. You don't know what you want to do until you're perhaps in college or out of college. And so her advice was, we should be telling kids, follow your instinct to nurture other people, follow your be good to your community. That often leads to good outcomes, or just follow the money.
I bet seeing representation, seeing people like you in certain roles also impacts the answer to that question.
Yeah, that's right. Well, and she's hoping this will be the change that they end up seeing as well.
Very cool. Brad Mieke, thank you. Interesting conversation. And you can hear Brad dive into more stories like these on Start Here. New episodes drop weekday mornings at 6 Eastern, wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.